Okay. All right. I'd like to call to order.
Here's Matt.
I'd like to call to order the February 28th, 2023 meeting of the Downtown Development Authority. I'll start with the roll call. Sharon Corbin.
Here.
Board Member Farhat. Board Member Horn.
Here.
Board Member Kretschmar.
Here.
Board Member Ochoa.
Here.
Board Member Turnbull.
Here.
And Mayor Hodge.
Here.
I am here, Ben Wixon, and Board Member Kilgus and Board Member Asif were excused from today's meeting. So we can get started with the approval of the meeting minutes from December 13th.
Motion to approve. Second.
Take a call. Board Member Corbin.
Aye.
Board Member Horn.
Aye.
Board Member Kretschmar.
Aye.
Board Member Ochoa.
Aye.
Board Member Turnbull.
Aye.
Mayor Hodges.
Aye.
And I'm also an aye. Okay, so the next item we move to is public comment on agenda items. Is there any comment on agenda items? Okay, so we'll move to unfinished business. Do you want to?
Yes,
take up
absolutely.
some-
So thank you, Chairman Wixon. So this board has talked about, and obviously, with the storm events and such that, going to sustainable measures within Cross Point Park, looking at what we can do when it comes to rain gardens, bioswales. And so this board did approve $10,000 in green infrastructure that's actually in our budget. So last year in 2022, we applied to Southeast Michigan Council of Governments to see if there, as a pilot, right in front of City Hall, as you enter in, there's like a bricks area with trees. If we could, see about making that a rain garden. And as an example for the community, to showcase, hey, as you walk into City Hall and maybe down the road, you as a resident might be interested as well, and, other opportunities. So, exciting news is SEMCOG currently, which is hired, this was provided through American Rescue Plan dollars and the IJA funding through the federal government. SEMCOG was given $900,000 for the EPA's Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. Grosse Pointe Park applied in 2022 for a funding design concept, which we were not funded. However, there was some money left over. So then we were funded for this design, which is included in the packet. So this was at no cost to the DDA, and this was entirely done by SEMCOG, which was amazing to have. So we didn't have to pay for engineers, architects. This was all by SEMCOG staff. And so now what we're looking to do is apply for this grant, which the maximum is $100,000. And ironically, the first round that they had last year, there was about a 25% match, by the authority. But right now, they're actually no cost to any authority. However, which is helpful for us for leverage is that we did appropriate $10,000 that we could supply into this. So we did let SEMCOG know as a little bit of a carrot that we do have this funding available. The project is $53,000 approximately, and with DDA funds, $10,000, you're looking at a $43,000 project. So I just wanted to let the board know that this is exciting, and we'll find out hopefully in the spring of 2023 here if we're funded for it. So again, just trying to look for grants and opportunities. Just wanted to let you guys know the good news, and if you had any comments or thoughts or questions.
That's great. I agree.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. There was some discourse about the appearance of the front of City Hall on the internet one day, and when I saw this, I was like, this is going to make everything look a lot better. So, no, I think this is really great. This is really great.
Yeah, and I really have to thank who's been a real part of this, our city forester, Brian Coulter. He's really been at this, and the Beautification Commission. It's a real passion for them, especially looking at sustainability as part of beautification, and also the commission as well. They were really excited to, so in a way, we're kind of having a partnership between the beautification and the DDA. So it's really a lot of fun.
So, I mean, what are the odds that we would get funded for the total difference between what we already allocated for this project?
I think the chance will be pretty good, because typically when there is a no match requirement, most communities are going to, all right, we're hopefully don't have to pay nothing, especially when the program guidelines say pay nothing. But, if you're offering that, hey, we can help offset so that they then can use that extra $10,000 to another applicant, that is certainly something that we'll look at. And, so we do have letters of support from the Beautification Commission and communicate with SEMCOG as well.
Cool. Very good.
So it's kind of just cross your fingers at this point and see what SEMCOG decides.
Yeah. Great. Well, that sounds really good. Okay, so any other discussion on that agenda item? Okay, so we can move on to new business. If you'd like to introduce that.
Absolutely. So I have Chandra from GEMA Studios with us tonight. And Chandra, we selected GEMA Studios as part of our Civic Campus discussion. So they will be talking with us about the visiting session, goal for the campus, stronger understanding of the site programs, character and vibe of the space, other areas we should be looking at or maybe stay away from, other considerations. I did meet with Ujiji in January. And so her and I actually did walk the site together. We, walked the whole perimeter and just, I could see that she certainly has a vision and being able to, see what's going on. Certainly I can have my vision, but you can just see the ideas flowing. So it was pretty exciting. And so I want to take any more time. I'll let Chandra take it away.
Thank you. And I've got Ujiji is going to listen in on the phone. I'm going to call and have her on speaker. Can you hear me? Okay, cool. I've got you on speaker. And we can get started. So I'm going to start just passing around these. So this is sort of a preview of what we'll be doing as a wider public engagement session. I've got enough for everyone, which we're hoping to do in April. So we're really hoping to pick all of your brains tonight and just kind of make sure we're on the right track with the questions and ideas that we're bringing forward at that larger public engagement event. Did everyone get one?
Yes.
Okay, great. And how much time do we have tonight for this conversation?
The board wants to talk about it and yourself.
Okay, so we had planned for wrapping up by around 8, but I just wanted to make sure that would work for everyone. Almost an hour, right? Okay,
Thanks.
Great. So yeah, if you open up to the first page, just a quick review of our design process timeline. So we're right here, kind of in the middle of our site analysis and inventory stage, and beginning the visioning process. And again, we really wanted to kind of start with all of you to make sure that we're asking the right questions as we put the survey together and move into the larger community event. So on the next page, the agenda for tonight is starting by talking about what is working well with the Civic Center Plaza design currently. What we want to make sure is included in the redesign and kind of doesn't get disrupted or is added. And then talking about things that could be changed or improved upon, and hopefully going into some more creative thinking about kind of in your wildest dreams, what would we want to see this site turn into? And then we'll just talk quickly about the next steps for the process. So on the next page, we just have a quick overview sketch of the current site. So you'll see the kind of brighter blue color is the sidewalks and pedestrian paths around the site. The darker blue is kind of where we're assuming that there's probably pedestrian traffic, but there's not kind of clear delineated paths for that. And then the big red arrows are where we currently have entrances to the building. So you can kind of see that it's a lot of traffic around some of the existing sidewalks, but then also likely traffic crossing parking lots and streets. And then also bumping up to the yellow, which is the residential streets and the residential alleys. So then the next 2 pages are a collection of site photos, just to kind of ground us in what it would be like to walk around the site as a pedestrian currently. And so looking through this page and the next page, I wanted to start by asking you what you like most about the current conditions on the site. So if there's things that you really love, things that you see people using a lot that we should know about. And I'd love it if you guys could just kind of jump in and share any thoughts that come to mind.
Well, the residents really like the green space.
Okay,
So keeping as much green space as possible is what they've been concerned about. They like to play out there, have picnics and
okay,
do little things like that. And then the residents that live at Lake Point, in those, the condominiums, they're really concerned about the view
okay,
and they like looking at the green space. So I'd say that's probably the thing we hear about the most
okay,
is not, like, they're not really thrilled about having a parking lot, but
okay.
so as much green space as possible.
Yes,
And that's what they like that we have now.
okay, great. Yes, sorry.
Oh, if you could move my phone to like central. please.
Okay, let's,
You know, I'll take up some time.
sorry about that.
No problem.
Hopefully that works better. So, and they're using that green space for picnics, you said,
Playing catch and stuff like that.
Okay,
And they just looking at it.
okay. Great, that's good to know. Any other?
One thing that came to mind, so the picture in the top left of this slide, which shows the library,
Yeah,
that walking path is, I believe this is the walking path that's between where the new parking lot is and the building, so you can walk to it from Lake Point, is that correct?
yes,
Yeah, that might be in between, yeah.
That would be between?
Yep.
I know that the Point Park residents wanted to preserve a way to walk from Lake Point to the library parking lot in the front of between City Hall and the library.
okay,
So it wasn't just a parking lot butting up to the building.
okay,
So there was a safe route for pedestrians to get through without having to go through the parking lot.
okay,
So, and that, I think, just for your information, just so you know, the area on the site overview,
yeah,
where you kind of you have the two dark dashed lines kind of in an X over the grass area, that's where the proposed parking lot's gonna
Okay.
go. So
okay,
the back part of that, is already kind of landscaped up to the pedestrian walkway.
okay,
So I think that's something that we should at least try to maintain, some kind of, way through for pedestrians, so they don't have to either go through the parking lot
okay.
that will be built there or around it. I'll also add just like as a personal comment, I think that the architecture of this campus is something that most of the residents enjoy too. So, and I say that knowing that when we voted on GMA, that there was some really cool stuff that you guys were doing that kind of was like a marriage between new and old.
Mhm.
So I think preserving, this architecture, but being able to mix it in with something new that kind of integrates us with the neighborhood and our neighbors in Jefferson Chalmers is important too.
Okay,
But I think that's just me speaking as somebody that likes cool old buildings.
I agree.
But I think
A lot of people like that.
yeah, I think a lot of people would
Yeah.
agree with that.
And
So,
I think there's opportunity to let our architecture stand out a little more
Okay.
if we are able to integrate the site a little better.
Sure.
Because right now, just the way it's a little overgrown on the front, and it doesn't really have that sense of arrival
uh-huh.
that you've come to a municipal campus. I also think people like to bike to the library. I'm not sure how many people show up to the city hall by bike, but I don't know.
Okay. And is bike parking an issue at the library right now, or does it seem like?
No,
adequate?
there's bike racks.
Yeah, that's not correct.
And a bike repair.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So we want
Just-
to make sure we keep that because that's important.
Okay, cool. Great, other things that are loved that should be
Well,
kept?
for driving, I like having the mailbox and the library book drop off.
Okay,
Yeah.
oh, that's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Absolutely.
I don't want to see
Yeah,
those go away, or they could be moved somewhere, but
Yeah.
So it's still like a drive-through where you can leave your books or your water bill.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, that's nice.
it's a really good point.
I think one of the other items, and I don't know if this is premature to discuss this, but the residents of the condos there across from Lake Point were concerned about traffic flow. So if there is like an entrance to the parking lot moved there, that might be too much traffic or congestion for
Okay.
the residential street, so I don't know if it,
That's a good point,
like
yeah.
keeping it on Jefferson to enter vehicle traffic.
So it concerns specifically about the traffic coming on to Lake Point, okay.
Yeah, I know that was mentioned at one of the meetings.
Other thoughts?
The garden's not really maintained,
Okay,
and I don't know if anybody else agrees, but the whole site looks more like a vacant lot to me than a green space. So I think that vernacular, it needs to be entered into the discussion, right? And the parking lot itself is in really bad shape. And we've known that needs to be corrected.
Yeah, I can.
If we're into the things we don't like.
I can make a point on that, with the parking lot and especially the walkability section. So, we've had our engineers looking at City Hall parking lot, and I know that's been a point of talking, and, there's certainly some significant work we're gonna have to do. So, the city is looking at potentially redoing that parking lot this year. We do want to get costs, and obviously with GMA's help with looking at the parking lot too for that designing, then I'll be able to bring that over to our engineers and see about those costs and, see what we can do there. Because we actually have, it's not likely just to be a mill and fill project, which is typically what happens in our city streets where you scrape off about 2 and 2.5 inches. There's actually some subfloor where it's in bad shape. The term is like an alligator they call. So if you actually, when you're dropping off your books right now and that, you can see that dip, when you go in, and there's probably about 30% of the parking lot is in that shape. So, we're gonna look to fix that. And I didn't want to steal any thunder or any other ideas. One thing, I see, especially working here at City Hall, is you delineated perfectly the grass lot where, we do have DDOT buses that will park there. And so the bus drivers otherwise have to, or residents from that corner of Jefferson and Lake Point have to cross over that grass lot. And so, and even, Gigi and I were walking together down that service drive, and there's no sidewalk, for a resident, biker, or anybody to safely be able to enter off of Jefferson. So I think that's really important to highlight. And I'm glad, they saw that in here. And, it's definitely something very important.
Because our city hall is also accessible for anybody from that. Right now, we don't really have a bus stop out on.
The only one we have is just the corner, Maryland, right over there. But you've got 3 points of where buses are.
Right.
Yeah.
So some people come and sit in the police station.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that it's accessible to everybody.
Right.
And easily by foot.
And they sit in the police station to wait for the bus, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
And one of the other discussions was having something, we have one bus stop, one covered bus area on Maryland.
Yeah.
It could be something that would be beneficial to have something on Jefferson, aesthetically pleasing.
Or isn't it in Ferndale? I think I've seen where they actually have like grass on the top of their.
nice.
bus.
Green
Yeah,
grass.
okay, you've seen that too?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And Smart will actually help fund some of those creative ideas too. So
That's
that
great.
could be an opportunity for us to look at.
That'd be really great.
Yeah.
But I think that's important.
Yeah.
Because it would be a lot easier to have a place.
Yeah.
And then and I know this is probably off topic, but when you're redoing the back parking lot that's in not great shape, is there any way to add any green space or bioswales or anything? I know that costs money, but I think the back side of our campus could use some greening up too.
Yeah, and that's the fun part of looking at this. I think if you look at that whole parking lot, generally there's some green space, but it's, I think antiquated for today's purposes, and especially for, sense of arrival and parking and, what's going to be the best, help for, residents, especially when it comes to flooding, but also maintenance for city staff and others that, otherwise, you have guys right now that are taking their lawnmower and hauling it up on the grass to try and mow, the lawns. And it's certainly a maintenance nightmare. And a lot of the trees, as everyone has seen too, a lot of them are very outdated and, some have they're past their prime. And, we do have a tree budget that we have every year that we're able to help fund these, which is good news for us.
It's great. Will it still be metered parking?
The city is exploring, having, some pay stations in areas, so I can't comment exactly, but you could have a pay station or it could be changing the meter heads,
Okay.
possibly.
I guess a question I had related to parking is just if you have a target number of spaces that you want between the front and the back lot, because that would kind of help us figure out what space there is for other things other than the parking.
I'd be happy to speak real quick and then feel free to jump in. I think at least, probably maximizing the amount of parking in the municipal area as you see right now.
Okay.
Maybe to offset some of the parking, in the grass area.
And
So
do you
you're
have-
saying fulfill our parking obligations as much as we can in the existing parking space
Mhm.
area and preserve as much green space
Preserve
or
as much
other
green space as
programming
we can
space.
with the requirement of, what we do, but at least have as much as possible within our current site.
That's great.
Yeah, that is. Does that make sense, Chandra?
Yeah, I'm curious if there's any numbers that you have.
I could get you those numbers.
Because we have an
Yeah, let me get you the numbers.
Aren't we committed, Nick? We have an
Rough-
obligation.
Roughly 50
Okay,
spaces.
okay, great. Yeah, that's helpful.
Additional or total?
Additional.
Additional, I believe, the way that the agreement is.
So including what's existing in the municipal lot, we need to add an additional 50.
Yes, and that was, we had an MOU that was done with the Urban Renewal Initiative for a parking lot right behind here. And in that agreement, it says roughly about 50 spaces.
And that's actually an agreement between.
The DDA and the Urban Renewal Initiative.
Right. But the parking lot is part of an overall
Correct.
MOU with the city of Detroit, Grosse Pointe Park, and Urban Renewal, the new parking lot, correct?
So that's a set number, if that makes sense.
Or you need to know the total.
I mean, the total will be helpful eventually, but knowing that 50.
What's in the existing municipal lot now, plus an additional 50.
Correct.
And you feel we need everything in the municipal lot now? Or you're saying we could maybe maximize that space further and peel off some of the 50 that we thought would have to go in the green space and accommodate them in the existing parking
That
space?
could be a potential, yeah. Mhm.
We can definitely try to see if that's possible.
Yeah, it may not, and a lot of it could be configuration and kind of how, the green space acts and, so I, at least from history that I know, that lot's probably been at least 20 years or more, so.
Okay.
Because there are some it is a little weird, the circulation is a little weird, especially when you're entering from Maryland.
Yeah, if you're entering off of Maryland or our public safety officers that are parked right
Yep.
against abutting the building, there's some awkward, and I'm actually kind of surprised I haven't sideswiped anybody in there. As you run off Maryland of how narrow that drive is.
Yeah.
I guess I had a question somewhat related to that, is there's that residential alley there, and I was curious if that's ever an issue, that the parking lot kind of goes back up to the alley there, and if it's something where you would want to have that more closed off, or if you like that there's kind of open direct access to the alley right now.
At least from what I've seen, is a lot of residents that do live in that area, they do enter off of Jefferson or Maryland and will access that alley to get to their garages and that. So that's certainly something we want to keep open.
Okay.
Ugigi and I actually noticed there's a garage nearby that
Yeah.
that could be an opportunity of working with that homeowner to see if maybe we could see if maybe there's space there available or working with them.
One other thing I wanted to add, and I'm not sure if this would fall under the planning for this, but I know during the master plan, there was talk about wayfinding. So, wayfinding signs is something that we have. The other thing is when you're approaching from either direction on Jefferson, you really don't feel like you're entering the civic campus. So, and I think just, however that's planned out, and even going down Maryland and going down Lake Point, butting up to the alleys and the residences, I think it should be a kind of a clear demarcation between the civic campus. I mean, because I agree that closing off the Maryland alley would be probably not a great idea, but there still could be maybe something visually, whether it's through landscaping or otherwise, that could help kind of let you feel like you're in a place.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
And maybe we can move to the next page actually now, because we start by just getting into talking about more creative ways to handle parking. So one of the options is bioswale, you guys have already been talking about. But there's also opportunities to think about creative designs to pavement. So whether that's using permeable pavers to create kind of a more naturalized green landscape, or just painting on top of typical pavement to create a kind of like pure creative presence in the parking lot. So I was curious if like any of these ideas are appealing to all of you. And I guess this is partially probably a budget question too, in terms of the permeable pavers and some of those other types of paving opportunities.
I think that we'd be interested in it, and then we just need to see how the budgeting comes in. But it's certainly something I think everybody would.
Do those require a lot of maintenance if it's painted, like in terms of having to redo it?
That's a good question. Let me see. Ujiki, did you hear that? No, she was able to.
No, can you repeat the question?
Just a question on the maintenance required for painted parking lots and permeable pavers.
Sure, yeah. So different degrees of maintenance for both. Paint is one of the low cost activation strategies, but it would require potentially having to repaint depending on the frequency of the use and also what we would be using it for. Permeable paving could be an option to capture stormwater. One of the challenges though with that maintenance is vegetation, which is ironic. When you start to add in and as trees get more mature, leaf litter can potentially clog some of those. So I think it'll be just about the specific type of permeable paving you use. Some folks really like the grass pavers, which are pretty great, but I think thinking there's a couple trade-offs with accessibility and suitability for the site. So not super direct response, but there are different degrees of maintenance required, and I think it just really depends on what our appetite for revisiting this civic campus is going to be on a regular basis. No matter what we do, there'll be a level of maintenance, and so if we can work with you to kind of just specify, the kind of regular control that it makes sense for DDA and the city to kind of revisit, citations.
Laura, and kind of real quick too, we did buy a new city street sweeper last year, which a lot of the bristles in there, something we asked the vendor, if we went to permeable pavers, could they clean the inside and get that out? And the good news is they said it wouldn't be a problem. So obviously budget with permeable pavers, but we do have the equipment if need be maintained.
Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah.
Any other kind of immediate reactions to any of these images of the parking? Kind of the 7th page that you have there.
I do like, the bottom center parking lot. I mean, whether or not they're permeable, permeable parking spaces, I think just the concept is appealing. There's a lot of green in there to offset the pavement and the cars and everything else. So I think to me, that just looks appealing, inviting. Yeah.
I agree. I like it much better than painted.
Yeah.
More enduring.
Yeah.
I think the painting would be more a temporary, like, programming strategy, right, where you do, but not a permanent.
Yeah. I mean, maybe at the bike racks, but it seems like it would look really great. I mean, for
10 minutes.
it would look like, oh God, that's good again. So,
Yeah.
And the neighbors might not like.
yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing is.
Yeah, we could probably take the right and left side right out.
Go right down the center.
Center bottom is.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great that there's agreement on that. Yeah. So we can go ahead and then move on to the next slide unless there's other thoughts on parking. But trying to think a little bit more about gathering and events and like other things that you might want to see happen on site, which is, going to be dependent on how much space we have left over. But thinking if there's like creative ways that we wanted to incorporate pop-up spaces into the parking lot so that maybe on weekends or on certain days, you could have more of like a food truck area or like a pop-up vendor area, or a theater. I was like, any of those ideas, I think you'd be interested in thinking about more.
Oh, I think so. And I think as the Jefferson corridor gets more activated, that this is something that we'd all like to see a more accessible, more welcoming for events. There has been other residents that have talked about doing things like a food truck rally and things like that. So I think it's definitely something we'd like to see. I also, if you go back to the image of the sign on the front, the center bottom, there's a lot of lawn space there
Okay.
that could be used for activating as well.
Okay.
So, and I don't think that space currently gets used. So I think
No,
that,
front lawn, no.
yeah.
Is there a reason that it's just empty?
I'm not saying that to be funny, but it just, I mean, not.
It's sparse.
Yeah, it's very sparse, yeah.
So that has so much opportunity, I think.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons, I mean, we're kind of going backwards, but one of the reasons you don't really know that you've arrived at a civic campus is because this building's a little offset from Jefferson. So, doing something with that to maybe emphasize, I mean, even the building itself, I mean.
And we have a new logo, and that's I think an older logo on our signage. And as we talk about wayfinding and signage and sense of arrival, I think it would be great if we could look at all of that as part of it.
And I know that's very important in the library is wayfinding, especially because there's still a lot of residents not sure, where's the Ewald branch and that. So something, understanding here's public safety and library.
One thing I'm kind of reminded of now that I'm thinking of, and I'm glad you brought up the front of the building because I meant to say something about that. I'm not saying that it needs to be modeled after how the Woods has their city hall, but they have like the trees and then they do events out in front of city hall. And they'll do like little farmers markets and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we need to put a forest out in front like they did, but having a space that you could use, because that is actually a really large area that could be used for something. So I'm glad you mentioned that because
Yeah.
I thought about that earlier. So
Well, it's strange that that's not where you enter the building anymore. either,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, that could be modified somehow or better.
that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious about that, if there's like, if those doors are used at all. So there's that front door and then there's the front door of the pumping station. They both seemed closed when I went by, but I wasn't sure if they're ever used, like if we need to keep them open as exits or.
Yeah, so I can comment on the pumping station. So that was, the original entrance used. That's no longer used today. And for employees and for safety, we have that cordoned off because, we will get some visitors, from the station around there. And then, so they go off the side entrance. I can comment, I know I found some old archive pictures that, front looking at City Hall from Jefferson, that was the front door. And actually the jail cells were right by there too, back in the day and such. You actually had to walk like through prison. Yeah.
Do you know from experience?
Yeah.
But I saw the pictures and, I've talked to people who've been around a while. No, otherwise right now, the main entrance is that one off the parking lot. And so, but, however you do, I will see, because my office is right by there that, there's, people don't know that there is a sidewalk right beyond those hedges right now that, they'll traverse walking from the bus stop, to have to go around City Hall then or use that public safety entrance.
Oh,
Well, those shrubs present a safety issue too, right?
There's a safety issue.
Yeah, those shrubs, I would be just fine with seeing those go. I'm sorry, we could replace it with something lovely.
We plant them somewhere.
That's right, we can, those can be relocated to a park.
Free
We have
Christmas
two.
trees.
I love the idea definitely of the food trucks, going to the gathering and events, even that space we have on the top left, you will see from the library, a lot of patrons that are sitting out, especially on a nice day, having a coffee or lunch and, you know, just kind of that hangout spot, even kids that are in the area. So that could be something cool. And I know, I think we've talked as a board potentially of, you know, what if that parking lot or green space could have, it looks like you got like a, you know, almost like a mini concert venue, you know, could there be some concerts, you know, and space available for, you know, we'll probably talk to the Lake Point homeowners, you know, give them a heads up.
Daytime events.
Daytime, there we go. Yeah.
One thing I'm kind of reminds me of is behind East Point City Hall, they have like a little, it's barely a stage, but it is a stage that they do events in, or they do events sometimes like during the day. But it's not totally built out as a stage, so it's kind of multi-purpose. So it can be used for performances, but it can be used for other things. It's kind of small, but it's on the backside of their city campus, or for their city hall campus anyway. And it's not huge. You know, it would be a lot smaller, obviously, than this wood structure that's here in the photos, but could be used for something like that, actually.
Yeah.
In terms of aesthetics, are there any of these that you find most appealing or that you really don't like?
Not a fan of the pallets
Okay,
hanging out there with food trucks, although I do like that mini stage. Have we consulted or talked with the library and what they would like to see as far as multiple use areas? I mean, incorporating a reading area for kids or
That's nice.
little stages.
And that is a good point you bring up, that we should make sure in our visioning session that the library is included as input. Very much so.
I'd have to say I'm not particularly drawn to any of these, but would want to see the essence of this represented in
yes.
some way that is more fitting of the character of the area. And one space that I find really enjoyable, I don't know if anybody's ever been there, but the Congregation in Detroit, you know, where it's the cool old church. And I mean, it was a church, yeah, right? And then it's just a very welcoming place for families, for business people having a meeting, for friends. They do a great job of capturing, I think, a very community-minded vibe.
Yeah.
That might be one that we strive for that does, and it does accommodate different events and activities like this too.
Yep, that's a great one. Any other thoughts on these images? Okay. So moving on, just ideas around public art. So we know that the new art center is going to be kind of around the corner. So we're curious if you have thoughts on like how sculpture or other design elements could be included in the Civic Plaza. And yeah, if any of these images are interesting or not appealing.
I personally am not drawn to the vibrant colors for a municipal campus, just because of the architecture that we currently have and the surrounding area. So I think, you know, where I like to be a little, you know, I think everybody wants to be a little forward with our thinking. We have to keep in mind this is a, you know, historic space, and we want to kind of have that good blend, keeping the historic architecture.
I think the idea of the public art is one that I support. One thing, and I'm not necessarily saying this is exactly what I would go for, but the bottom left, it looks like it's kind of like a functional, it's like a functional art piece. So
Interactive.
it's like you can sit on it and read a book. Something like that, I mean, might be okay.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a myriad of ways that you could maybe find something that matches a little bit more with the aesthetic of the neighborhood. But I think part of it too, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I know one of the reasons that GMA stood out to us too specifically was because you know, we want to freshen it up and have a newer look. And I think one of the reasons that I was kind of drawn to your firm was because you know, in some of the presentation that we originally shown, there was a lot of really kind of forward-thinking
artistic integration with historical architecture.
Yeah.
So I think, when board member Turnbull says the vibrant colors, maybe not what we're going for, that's probably true, but I think the essence of it being something fresh is still there. And that's like, it may be hard to see when you're talking with us. We're like, yeah, we don't know about the painted pavement or all the colors, but there is a reason that I think that we chose you guys. So with that in mind, I don't think we're afraid of ideas. We just it's a struggle because everything around here is old.
Yeah.
So, the identity of this community, I mean, it's, one of the oldest suburbs it is probably one of the oldest suburbs in this region. So all of our architecture is 1920s. I mean, some late 19 teens. So, but we need to make sure we're staying with what's going on around us too. And there's a lot of really cool things happening on the other side of Alter and Jefferson Chalmers. And it's working over there too a little bit. I mean, you've got new restaurants and new boutiques opening up that are taking the old and mixing it with the new, and we're right a block away. So what we don't want to have it not, we don't want it to seem like you're entering another world when you enter Grosse Pointe Park for our neighbors in Detroit. It's, we're two cities right next to each other sharing the same vision, I hope,
Yeah.
So anyway, that's why forward thinking with the art, all good. Maybe not so much on all the colors, but
Yeah.
I'll let everyone else decide.
It's really well said.
Yes.
Nice job.
Super
So
helpful.
I was thinking a little bit about Maras and their artwork, how it's kind of in the
Yeah,
landscape.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't really stand out as much. I'm assuming.
And that's a Grosse Pointe Park resident, there's a
Right.
couple that are leading that,
Oh.
Roger and, I'm blanking on, I think the Southern Gardener, Mel.
Okay.
Who are leading, and I know they're very committed to public art, and would be very on board with anything we wanted to do.
One thing about this, I could see skaters on it, so I don't know how you want kids to be involved or not involved.
Are you
Sometimes-
saying we should add a half pipe?
Yeah, but just saying that I know by DIO, they're up and down the
Sure,
ramps and all
sure.
that kind of stuff, so
Sure, yeah.
they're gonna come.
It's a great way to
Look at the next page.
That's the next question.
We are a lakefront community though, and looking at our logo, I would like to see some artwork that involves that somehow, the lakefront, some type
Yeah.
of water.
Which, by the way, what's the status of sale of two cities? I
I
mean,
was just gonna ask that
Yeah.
question. That's a good question.
maybe we can
So,
find a spot for that.
Nordine Brothers were the artists who created that. They have installations all over municipal properties in the city of Detroit. They're working to fix that right now. It should be done soon. And so we're looking
Is that the one
for,
that was uncorrigible?
yes, that was the one in Kirchville. And so we're looking for another spot, not on Kirchville because it keeps getting hit. And so I think that could be an opportunity. Maybe that's moved to here or moved, somewhere else,
Are you familiar with that?
Scotts potentially.
Okay, I'm sure Nick can get you an
Yeah.
image.
And get you
Yeah,
a
the
picture.
Detroit Design Center did it, and it does what Jim is suggesting.
Yeah.
It's a sale of two cities and,
Oh, cool.
so.
Yeah, it's really
kinda cool.
cool, yeah. No, that would, that would fit really
Good
great.
thought.
That's a good idea.
Well, and whatever we can do to inspire gathering, and that's what art does, right? And are there other partners that we can leverage, like a Kresge art installation or a project play installation with the Ralph Wilson Foundation or I have a parks background and, when you visit other parts of the world, you see all kinds of amazing things. And I know one was in Toronto. They had a large Canadian, Asian, Indian population. I have that right? They're not American, obviously. But nonetheless, they put a tander oven in their park and, folks it just really facilitates cultural awareness and beautiful human so if there's something special like that, that's unique to the community. And Nick, or I've even looked, at the Rock at South or at Michigan State now, right? Like that's where a community goes to when it wants to communicate, when it wants to celebrate, when it wants to mourn.
Yep.
Is there a place like that we can call our own that really becomes the heart of the soul, maybe the soul of the community is what we're trying to capture. And Nick, is there anything we need to upcycle that could become an element? I've seen like old bridges become amphitheaters or, or you see the redeployment of, trucks, what do you call them, the box,
Yeah.
the what?
The
Oh,
cab.
Oh, like the trailers? for the
Yeah, but I
summer
mean,
trailers?
it's a very.
Airstream?
No.
Somewhere in that, but I blame it on COVID.
Shipping container. Yeah, it's the shipping containers and how those are, see how simple that was?
I'm thinking about the airstream trip.
Which would be, that's, you're thinking, cool, but that whole concept of, is there anything in the city like Santa sleigh or something like that? I'm kidding.
Oh, gosh, don't.
But
Okay,
something
now
like
Michelle.
that, that, needs to be redeployed. Ouch.
Maybe the Patterson Park Playscape.
Oh, that's actually a fabulous idea. So there's a wooden playscape at Patterson Park that the community built 30 years ago.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
And we're
Oh,
replacing
that's
it.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, it's all wood planks, right? Isn't that a fair?
Yeah,
So
that's
it
nice.
really could be redeployed
Okay.
and the
Could be
community.
something,
could be-
especially near the library.
That's a
when you're-
Fabulous idea.
So maybe if we find some precedent images of things that people can do with reused wood, that could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People would definitely rally around that.
And to the question of kids, are you interested in thinking about if there's like actual play spaces?
Well, certainly near the library, because that happens already. So I think that's something we need to speak to the kids and families that come there.
And I can't remember exactly what the congregation has, but they do that really effectively, where it's not overwhelmingly kid, but it's very kid friendly. Like you don't feel like you're going to a park necessarily, but you definitely know you can bring your family and children of all ages will be accommodated.
Other thoughts on the play? So then I just have a few examples in here of more formal landscaping, just to see if any of these are appealing to you in terms of aesthetics.
One thought, I'm sorry to go back a page, Chandra, I think the lake park is pretty amazing.
Sorry, the what?
The lake park
Yeah.
on the riverfront, that's pretty fantastic. And it's not a
Okay.
big space either, right? Like that kind of vibe's pretty cool. Has everybody been? And they have
The lake.
The lake park. And it's got great programming spaces and 4 seasons. That's the other thing, like maybe we need to consider the fourth the winter, like nobody in Michigan seems to leverage the 4th season and we should, right?
Like an ice carving competition on the front lawn of the municipal campus to bring in winter.
It's not a bad idea.
I know, right? A lot of cities do it.
Right? As many snow angels.
With food trucks and chili contests.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds great.
Bonfire.
Like it.
Christmas tree.
Are there any reactions to these kind of more formal landscaping pictures?
I don't like these little individual trees.
Okay.
Beds.
From a maintenance standpoint, probably the best for the city would be the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
That I'm drawn to that the most as well.
But none of them are super exciting.
No.
One thing too that, to mention, and I'm not sure if this was brought up with your conversations, Nick.
So where the new lot's going in, where the vacant lot is now, we told the neighbors at the Point Park condos that we would speak with them about design ideas especially for that, because there are a lot of homes in that condominium that face the lot that's going to become the parking lot. So one of the things, I guess, in terms of formal landscaping could be larger trees or arborvitae's or something that's got some significant height to it.
Yeah.
Border, yes.
Along the border, along Lake Point especially, so, and that's something that, you know, we actually told them that we would meet with them when we get into the designing phases.
Okay.
So they could kind of give some input on that, so that may be something that's beyond just like a regular community survey, because they're the ones that literally have to look at it. So what we're hoping is that, instead of thinking about it something that they have to look at, that it's becomes something that they want to look at, that's,
Right.
you know, that takes the place of the lawn that was there, you know, makes it something, you know, that benefits them rather than detracts, so.
Yeah,
And I'm sure there's a couple of residents who would be happy to have you
Sure.
over their
Oh,
place
yeah. Oh, yeah.
look at from their view.
One of whom has some artistic ability and submitted some.
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely.
Can we make sure she gets a copy? And it might not hurt to give you a list of some of the programming we currently do too, to see if it can be accommodated. Like our beautification commission does a plant sale.
okay.
You know, so is there a way to facilitate that in
the-
some dynamic way? And maybe with some of these planted areas where it could be a cutting garden or, you know,
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. Or the programming, we'll close down Charlevoix and Kirchhoff and do street parties basically. And, you know, sometimes we get complaints from residents because it's too close to the residential areas and that, so but maybe there's a way to cushion it here. Oh, here, yeah, she's just.
Yeah, that'd be great to get a list of the programs.
She also did that one rendering, Nick, the, like almost painting.
Yeah, there's like a,
What is it? Ooh, it's-
Sharon.
Sharon, you're good. She's got it right on the wall.
So if we want to go ahead and move to the next page, some of this has already come up, but we wanted to kind of just do a brainstorm of the words that you all want to come to mind when you're thinking about the Civic Center. So I know so far, kind of integration of new and historic, fresh, classic, old, have all come up.
Welcoming,
I'm sorry,
welcoming,
welcoming, okay.
sense of arrival.
Or inviting.
Inviting, yeah.
Yeah, inclusive.
Maybe that stands out the most accessible.
Accessible.
Very much so.
And family friendly.
Culturally rich.
Pedestrian friendly.
How do we feel about dogs?
Oh, good point.
Dog friendly?
Oh, boy, we already have one dog park. We really gonna?
That question will need to be answered eventually though.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, I mean, do people come with their dogs to the campus?
City Hall.
Yeah,
You can also see some, you know, walking the dog across. the
Yeah.
lawn Right now, or sidewalk.
Yeah.
I don't know, anybody tying up the dog.
we could always put a little water bowl out in front of the front door, and that could probably.
You know, you think
Welcome
of
the dogs.
like one of those,
I don't know.
little bag stations.
Yeah, just.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't
Yeah, that's a
hurt.
good idea.
Yeah, that's actually a good
Yeah,
idea.
very good idea.
Bag station.
And then it seems like this has come up a little bit in the conversations around the images. The sort of whether the vibe is kind of like more casual or formal, or like how we want to kind of walk that line. Is there any other words kind of around those ideas that come to mind?
I would think casual over formal.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Approachable.
Energetic, or is that too
I
colorful?
don't like it.
I like natural.
Natural, for sure.
It really is.
Flexible.
Yeah, I don't see a formal I don't see this as being a formal garden scenario. This is
Yeah.
far more natural,
Dynamic.
easily dynamic, yeah.
Casually natural, yet inviting.
Absolutely casual.
Get inviting.
Is that the
We
new
could write
Friday
commercials.
shopper? 'Cause that's where
Casual, we could all have.
Casually natural, yet inviting.
No pressure.
Cool. Any other final thoughts? After we kind of move out of that slide, we're going to talk a little bit more about timeline. So any other thoughts on like design ideas or?
Just maybe back on the mobility front.
Yeah.
Because we also have our trolley, which, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you know, like if there was a holistic, just look at what we need to accommodate from a mobility standpoint and
Okay.
forward looking, I mean, bikes, EVs, cars, or trolley, the buses. Sure there are other modes too, but at least be thoughtful about that. I mean, we can't accomplish everything on this site, but.
Right.
And then I think we talked about in the RFP, all of the documents that would inform this process, like in the redevelopment ready community park. But was the Jefferson plan on there from JEI? Because they've got their whole master plan for the corridor. Then the city has its too of Detroit. So just from a continuity standpoint, it wouldn't hurt to look at those and see what elements would make sense to connect with to I think the vision that you articulated, Ben, of, being good neighbors and being a porous border
Yeah.
that really connects the two communities rather than like Wizard of Oz or something.
Yeah.
Get into the color of.
Yeah. Oh,
That's good to know that those are references we can look at. I know we've looked over the master plan and the parking plan, but we'll check out this.
And I think we can be aspirational. I mean, this is a really important moment, right? Like there's so many great things happening and we have so many resources available to us right now where I think we can think somewhat big. And I know we have budget issues, but we, as a city, but we have great partnership opportunities and relationships I think we can leverage and people who are all on board with wanting to do that, both sides of the border. So if this could become a catalyst for that, and why waste this opportunity in this moment, right? So.
Yeah, if we start off saying we have no money, but if it's a great idea, maybe we can find it.
But maybe.
Well, all of us have had people like, Roger Garrett, public art, if it's that, I'm in. Like he's very public about that, right? So, those are the kinds of folks I think we have access to who want to be part of something good.
I think for us, that's helpful to know because we can think of it as like, if we're pitting out what you want and then you can use that as a pitch to funders or however you want to handle it, but we can put out the big vision if that's what you all are looking for.
Well, and also there might be a way that we can phase this as well.
Yeah.
So if you could look at phasing opportunities, so where we might not be able to accomplish everything at once over a period of time, we could grow into a plan.
Yeah, I think that would be really smart. Like start out like what the municipality can handle, right? And what our obligations are, which are the parking spots, right? So make sure that would be phased. That's the absolute. That has to happen. And then what can you layer on?
Right.
Any other final thoughts? So the next slide talks a little bit about the timeline in more detail. So from here, we're going to work on developing the survey that will be in the form of a Google form that you'll be able to distribute. So we'll get a draft of that to Nick in the next couple weeks. And then the goal is to really get that out by the middle of March. So it will be out for about a month. And then we'd be looking at the final public engagement session in mid-April. So we kind of hope to wrap up all the engagement by mid-April and close the survey after that final engagement session. So with the survey, we'll be distributing the form as a link, but then it will be up to all of you to kind of figure out how you want to distribute that link and kind of encourage participation with that. And then the same would be true in terms of the public engagement. So we'll run the whole session and provide the materials, but we will need help figuring out the location and figuring out turnout for that event. Yeah. And then from there, once we have all the public engagement, that's really when we're going to move into more of the concept design. So taking the feedback and spending the next month and a half putting together a design.
Great.
Awesome.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
I thought of one more thing.
Yeah.
We love red-winged blackbirds, but we want to discourage them from so we don't get bumped in the head.
So in general,
I'm not sure if I'm
birds,
trying to be funny or serious.
Yeah, right.
But we, when they're active,
Yeah.
we
It's
do.
bad.
Yeah.
so the red-winged blackbirds in particular are all birds on the site.
Red-winged
No,
blackbirds.
that's
And again, we
particular.
don't
No, I
advocate
think-
for hurting bird or anything, but just discourage
Right, don't plant something that attracts them.
They do disrupt the experience, I think.
And anything you can do to discourage fish flies would also.
See, she is. I'm not sure if I can commit to either of those, but think about not creating more habitat so that it makes black.
Lights aren't really the attraction.
The what?
Lights for the fish flies.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So not having those lights on, I guess. I don't know. Did you want her to see this from?
Oh, she can have it.
Okay.
I figured she's here, you might as well give it to her.
Really good. Thank you.
What have you seen work well with getting people to respond to the survey?
I honestly, I can ask the DT and get back to you on what
Okay.
we know other
Just
clients have
curious.
done. Yeah,
It's probably, about the way we communicate, and we have multiple ways to communicate. We just have to, get ahead of it. And
Get the word out, and obviously we also have the business community that can help us to spread the word. And obviously we got our local Facebook groups and emails and advertise in city website if we know, hey, this is coming as people are walking in to pay their bill, come to this session, or don't forget to look online for the survey.
And we do have a community engagement committee too, who
Okay.
actually convened a meeting with the condos,
Okay.
so they could even be the host of the engagement session.
I mean, that
For
seems
this.
ideal if you want to make sure they're involved.
And there's a city council meeting March 13th,
13th.
right, Nick? We could put it on the agenda there,
Okay.
do some crazy things there to get people's attention.
That'd be great.
Yeah, give them a heads up.
Yeah, that'd be excellent.
That reminded me of just another quick question. When we're thinking about actually scheduling the event, do you guys have recommendations in terms of days of the week or time that would be
Evening,
best?
7:00,
Okay,
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
and during the week probably?
During
Yes.
the week,
Okay.
yeah.
And I would say probably not a Thursday, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay.
But we'd also have to look at our other meeting
Yeah.
schedules.
Okay. And off the top of your head, are there any like major events in April that we should be aware of scheduling around?
Month, right? I don't
No,
know.
but as far as our meeting schedule, right?
Right, I don't know if we had any programming for that. But yeah, I mean, it's all on the calendar, right, Nick? It's the
Yeah.
online calendar.
Yep.
It's updated.
Do you all have any other questions for me?
You did a very nice job, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for
You
the
too.
feedback. Yeah, hopefully she's able to hear okay, and if not, I'm gonna fill her in.
Oh, we're excited.
And we had to find a location for the meeting too. right?
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have a good turnout.
Yeah.
It worked out very well, I think, for the Tompkins Center for the master planning.
Yeah.
You
The
know,
library doesn't have.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it would be nice to do it here, but I don't know how many.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What are the theaters? What's the larger theater?
That's a good idea too.
Yeah.
Show
The gym.
a companion movie. Maybe that's a way to incentivize people, if we have a free movie that night too.
Oh, yeah.
Meeting before.
That's a good idea. That's how you get people to do the survey.
Popcorn.
Forever. That's what I was gonna say.
Thank you very much.
If you submit it by a certain day, you get in a raffle or something for a gift card.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Right? And I'm sure that
The community.
Visit the Park would love to help us participate with some incentives.
Incentive idea for the survey.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Make it a contest.
Mhm.
Okay, I guess we could move on to our next agenda item, which is public comment for non-agenda items. Do we have any public comment for non-agenda items? No. All right. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Second?
Yes, second.
I'll do a roll. So, Board Member Corbin?
Hi.
Board Member Horn?
Hi.
Board Member Kretschmar?
Aye.
Board Member Ocha?
Aye.
Board Member Turnbull?
Aye.
Mayor Hodges?
Hi.
I am aye. Thanks, everybody, for
Thank you.
coming out.
All right.
Yeah, this was a great.
It's exciting.
Yeah.